Weezer. We're joined by Councilmember Marquise Harris-Dawson, Councilmember Mitch Englander, and Councilmember Felipe Fuentes. I'm just reading the names as they're listed here, no preference in any way, except for our Vice Chair. Go second. We are going to go through the agenda now. Item number 5, which is a report from the Director of Planning. We will receive and file that item. Item number 1, please. If you could read that into the record.
Sure. Councilman, item 1 is a report from Building and Safety. It's in response to a motion, Krikorian Fuentes, to revise the green building codes as relates to the use of gray water systems.
Is staff here to present on this item? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and council members. My name is Osama Yunin with the Department of Building and Safety. There are a number of council motions involving our department that deal with groundwater, use of gray water, and gray water step-outs. Also, Mayor Executive Directive 5 directs our department to propose to City Council some code changes pertaining to water conservation. In response to the council motions and the Mayor's directive, we are submitting a number of proposals for your consideration and guidance. In developing these proposals, we held stakeholder meetings with local experts, including building owners, professional associations, consultants, engineers, architects, contractors, trade, and labor unions. Some of them are here today. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of them for their participation. We also worked in collaboration with Department of Water and Power and Sanitation, and would like to thank them as well. In developing these proposals, we did our best to comply with the motions, the council motions and the Mayor's directive, and to make sure these proposals are practical, effective, and financially feasible. There are about 10 proposals that we are presenting to you. I'll go over them really quickly. One of them deals with requirements. We're proposing some requirements for hot water delivery to eliminate wasting cold water while waiting for hot water to come out of the fixture. We're proposing to require sub-meters for structures that use more than 100 gallons per day and for cooling towers. We're proposing to require a sub-meter for each individual dwelling unit in multifamily dwellings. We're proposing to require new construction projects to demonstrate 20% water reduction and require separate meters for outdoor water usage, such as landscaping. We propose to require a cover for swimming pools and spas in 1- and 2-family dwellings, and make new buildings gray water ready to make it easier in the future to install a gray water system. We propose to mandate the use of recycled water if it's available to the property for urinals, water closet, and industrial uses. We propose that we use more efficient cooling towers and use non-potable water for make-up to cooling towers in very large buildings. And finally, we have a proposal that groundwater discharge be used indoors or be discharged to the sewer. There is one correction, a couple of corrections we'd like to make. Since this proposal was submitted to the city clerk, the State of California Model Water Efficient Landscape Ordinance became more stringent and became into effect December 1st. So we would like to remove any portion of the proposals that pertain to landscape irrigation. Also, we have a typo in the sub-meters of cooling towers. We are proposing to sub-meter all cooling towers regardless of flow. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. We will go to public comment and then open up. But sure.
Just a quick question. You mentioned the multifamily. I was reading that as one of the exemptions. So my question on the multifamily, are you proposing that we would, because now currently I believe that we either don't allow and or even require multifamily new construction to have sub-meters for all the units. Is that what's being suggested as well, to then allow those?
Yeah, currently it's not required. It's allowed, but it's not required.
It's not even allowed. I mean, DWP flat out denies them all. I mean, I don't know of one where it's been built that has them. So we might allow them, but then DWP doesn't. So are we suggesting that, that's what I believe, that's what I've been told. So I'm often told bad information, but is that, are we suggesting that we would not only allow them, but require them for multifamily?
Right,
Just asking.
Mr. Council, I'm sorry. Yeah, so the ones we're proposing are installed by the owner, but not by the Department of Water and Power.
I understand that, but under new construction, they actually install the meters.
The main meter for the building, that would be installed by DWP, but the ones that's being referenced in these proposals, DWP will have no involvement in them
Right.
for the
The
actual dwelling unit. The
For
owner-
multifamily. But we're suggesting that they would then be required for all new multifamily construction?
Right.
Required,
For
not-
the individual, require them for the
Required.
individual tenant space.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I will call three speakers at a time. Tracy Quinn, Michael Quiroz, and Jonas Minton. Each have a minute each, please. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Tracy Quinn. I'm a senior policy analyst with the Natural Resources Defense Council. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comment today. NRDC participated in the work group that helped to develop this proposal, and we generally support all of the elements that in the version that you have before you. This proposal today is precedent-setting and will play an essential role in helping Los Angeles meet its goal of local sustainability and resiliency. Specifically, we're highly supportive of the requirement for new buildings to be built gray water ready. We do think that there could be some work with some of the exceptions for those buildings, specifically Exception 2, which requires all gray water to be used to fully supplement outdoor use. That means that gray water in a home that has a large landscape wouldn't be required to use gray water, and I think that we're going to miss a huge opportunity for the use of these alternative sources. But we also support the use requirement for separate outdoor meters to help ensure that our new landscapes are as efficient as possible, and then that could be verified and measured. Generally, we would recommend that the committee direct the city attorney to work with DBS to draft an ordinance revising the Green Code to include the elements of the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Quiroz.
Good afternoon, council people and chair. Thank you very much. I'm here representing Laborers International Union in North America and Southern California District Council of Labor's business manager Armando Esparza sends his regards. I have with me his representative, Saulo Renteria. We are in favor of this motion. This is an item that we have been supporting since the conception of gray water in Cal Green about 5 or 6 years ago. It's a job creator. It's an issue that it doesn't limit conservation or the use of recycled water to Beverly Hills or other areas that are affluent. It gives us an opportunity to impose and allow some of those districts that you represent to be able to conserve water and hopefully make it a more affordable part of their expenditures. We see this as an opportunity. It's a minimal code. Codes are designed to be minimal requirements for the design community to increase and include the opportunities for builders to do more. Thank you.
Thank you. Jonas Minton, Jerry Desmond, Danielle Gleiserman, and Jaime Valdivia.
Good afternoon. Jonas Minton with the Plan Conservation League. We're all the way down from Sacramento, where we do advocacy in the Capitol and with state agencies. It's great what you're doing here, not only for the residents of Los Angeles, but also for the image that you will be portraying in California. As we speak, the State Water Resource Control Board is trying to figure out what will be the rules for water use next year, particularly if this drought continues. Your leadership on this issue, improved water management, will go a long way to show that Los Angeles maintains a leadership position in water use efficiency. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry Desmond.
Afternoon, Chair and members. Jerry Desmond here on behalf of Plumbing Manufacturers International, PMI, the manufacturers of approximately 90% of the toilets, faucets, shower heads, and urinals sold nationwide. We support the objectives of both the governor's emergency order on the drought and the mayor's directive. Our concerns that we've expressed with Mr. Unin and the staff has to do where the maximum flow rates for specific products are lower than we just helped develop at the state level with the Energy Commission and the Housing Department. And we would, in order to ensure adequate availability of these products, we're suggesting that the timeframes be established where if it's lower than the Energy Commission Housing Department developed a one-year date for implementation, and if the Energy Commission and Housing Department adopted a date in the future, that would reflect that date for those products as well. And then finally, we would like correction on the construction projects that triggers these requirements, and we've worked with staff on what could be possible clarifications to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel, I don't know if that's an S or an M. Gleiserman or Gleiserman?
It's Gleiberman. Sorry about that.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning and Land Use Committee. My name is Daniel Gleiberman from Sloan Valve Company. I'll make this very quick. We have over 100-year history in the plumbing industry with expertise in innovation in conservation in the commercial restroom. As we understand the ordinance, sections 9904.303.4 and .303.2 both mandate a 20% reduction, but there are exceptions where if people follow the table, which I'm going to deem the best practices table, they can actually meet the requirements of the ordinance. We support this in concept. We do think that we want to work with staff to add some additional technologies that are both water conserving, safe, sanitary, and truly innovative to that list so people can really take advantage of the city's leadership and operate under best practices. But we fully support the ordinance with some modifications to add some additional flexibility for consumers. And I would talk more, but I know we're in a rush, so I thank you very much for your time, and we're available to answer any questions as well.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Jaime Valdivia, Connor Everts, Wayne from Encino, Melanie Winter.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, people of the council there. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak in front of you. My name is Jaime Valdivia. I'm the Director of the Piping Industry Progress and Labor Education. I represent approximately over 300 contractors in the plumbing and piping industry, as well as 13 local unions with about 10,000 members across Southern California. And I'm here to speak to you that we're in favor of this proposal. We believe it's a step in the right direction. It's a historical thing that can be done for the city of LA to conserve water. I ask that you pass this measure. We've been pushing this along with our members along the way since actually 2013 and asking our own members to make their own changes in their household. I actually pulled up my water bill here, looking at the 25% that was asked by the state there. And in looking at our bill, we've actually cut back our water by 52% in our household. So this is a reachable number, no doubt. We ask that you pass this measure. We continue your positive movement here, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Connor Everts, Connor Everts, Wayne from Encino. If you could wait 1 second, please. Thank you. 1 minute.
Connor Everts, no longer from Encino. I have worked on these issues for 38 years. I appreciate the opportunity. LA was known across the state for being great in conservation during the long drought where they employed community-based organizations. We have this opportunity again with this ordinance. I support it. There are some places with some inconsistencies. One very quickly is the irrigation code, the great acronym, the MILO, the state one. It's essential that we actually have enforcement in this because it doesn't go far enough. And as well in the gray water, you have some inconsistencies where you're essentially just putting the gray water back out, and we have a great opportunity with the laborers and others to fully deploy in time of drought. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wayne.
We can look online that gray water may possess waterborne pathogens like Legionella, Pseudomonas, Stenotromonas, and Klebsiella. I don't see any of you discussing any of that. And if the water reclaimant and the water treatments are not done properly, you'll be putting these pathogens in the harm of children playing in the lawn, and then they put their hands in the lawn and bring water with the gray water and go, "Mommy!" And then all of a sudden they get this disease from this reclaimed water. Nobody wants to drink this stuff. Nobody wants to water with this stuff. It's just a scam. That's all it is. Build more water storage because you have to capture water and store it. That's what we don't do. 80% of it gets flushed into the ocean. And finally, and most importantly, no on Mitchell Englander for the Board of Supervisors.
Melanie Winter, Caroline Orija.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I'm Melanie Winter. I'm the founder and director of a nonprofit called the River Project. We've been working with various city departments on these issues for about 4 or 5 years now, so it's great to see this move forward. We're very excited to see things like separate outdoor water meters, gray water, and groundwater discharge addressed here. These are critical issues. Separate outdoor meters, as you know, are going to help people make good decisions about conservation. Gray water as well can be a huge source for us, and groundwater discharge, saving the water we're currently throwing away. These are tremendous steps, and you should all be very happy. I want to make sure that we look at some of these exceptions, because some of these exceptions lead to rather gaping holes that can result in none of these things actually moving forward, and I think that's not what you want. So just hopefully we'll be able to look very closely and make some minor tweaks to the wording in some of these exceptions so that we don't end up creating something that isn't as productive as it may well otherwise be. So thank you very much. This is terrific, and we support it tremendously.
Thank you. Caroline Orija.
Hi, I'm Caroline Orija. Thank you very much for your time. I just want to raise my support for the issue. It will put like Los Angeles in a proactive measure and with water conservation. I feel that it'll give more residents of LA to be participants in water conservation, and it'll just put us on the forefront while the drought is still a hot topic. Thank you.
Any questions or comments? Okay, we're going to move to approve this item and forward it to council.
Actually,
or to staff.
yes, to request the city attorney to prepare the ordinance, Councilman.
Yes, so we could request the city attorney to prepare the ordinance, please,
And to also adopt the underlying motion, since it's the first time in this committee.
and to adopt the underlying motion since it's the first time in this committee.
Yes.
Thank you. Any objections? So ordered. Thank you. Item number 2, please.
Councilman, item 2 is an appeal by R.J. Strotz on behalf of the Windsor Village Preservation Committee. This is a CEQA appeal.
Okay. We're going to go first with the, want to make a presentation, please? A brief overview with staff? Yes, thank you.
Yes, hi, I'm Nora Dresser, City Planning Associate staff. What's before you is the CEQA appeal for a 32-unit condo project in the Windsor Village HPOC. The subject site includes an existing apartment building and the adjacent vacant lot, both of which are non-contributing elements in the HPOC. The project went through the rigorous HPOC review process, making sure it fit in with the historic district, and was granted a certificate of compatibility approval in May of 2014. The certificate of compatibility was appealed by R.J. Strotz, who represented the Windsor Village Association and herself. The Central APC then upheld the decision with a few minor changes to the project. The appellants of the certificate of compatibility appeal are also the same appellants, along with a few others here today. The appellant has raised several issues in the appeal. I'll address a few key issues. The details of the issues and the staff response are in the report before you. The original M&D addressed the 32-unit condo project. The addendum was prepared in 2013, which included the establishment of the HPOC. The project does not reach the threshold levels for an M&D the city has developed, including traffic and infrastructure, and is far below the thresholds for an EIR. The project conforms with the Windsor Village Preservation Plan, and please note that the project's design and compatibility have already been decided and upheld by the Central Area Planning Commission. Staff finds that the M&D and the subsequent addendum explanations, analysis, and mitigations are complete, and additional analysis and or EIR is not required. Details regarding the staff's response are in the report, and I am available along with Kim Bernstein, the principal city planner, for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Go to public comment first. Let's hear from the appellants. I've got a request that the appellants want to go in a certain order. Is that correct? I have 6 appellants. Appellants are given 5 minutes to state their case. If each individual wants to speak, they could always submit a separate card for 1 minute. If I provide all of you 6 minutes total to speak, is that sufficient? Or do you want to state your case? A representative or one appellant can take up 5 minutes, and then the others.
Yes, my name is R.J. Strotz, and I'm the representative of the Windsor Village Historic Preservation Committee. I do understand that I have 5 minutes, but following me, I would request that the consultants who are experts on this matter follow immediately thereafter, and that would be Frank Perello,
Yes.
Louisa Van Leer, Charlie Fisher, Suzanne Wilton. And there are members in the audience who have requested...
They will each have 1 minute after you if you do take 5 minutes. Okay?
All right, I do understand that. But there are members in the audience who have requested to give their time to these individuals. Would that be possible?
We don't do that, and we are consistent with that. So we don't allocate time or give your time away.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
My name is R.J. Strotz, and I am a resident of Windsor Village. I've lived there since 1999. I'm also the legal representative for Windsor Village Historic Preservation Committee. The appeal before City Council is based on Public Resources Code 2115C, which states that all administrative decisions regarding environmental impacts are directly appealable to the City Council. Now, in order to give you some insight as to what or how this case developed, this house used to be on the vacant lot that is proposed for development. The house was destroyed, demolished in '06 by a prior developer owner. This is what is there today.
So that house was destroyed? No.
The house was demolished.
That house was demolished.
Correct. And it was for this reason that our neighborhood got together and requested to become an HPOZ. We achieved HPOZ status in October of 2010. This is what is there today. That's what was there in '06. This is the existing 18-unit apartment building that Murrumbilla seeks to convert into condominiums. We have no issue with the condo conversion. We have an issue with regard to the project that they would like to build on the vacant lot. And here again you have another view of the vacant lot, the existing apartment building, and an existing historic contributor. This is what Murrumbilla seeks to construct. It is our position that constructing such a large-scale, massive condominium in a historic neighborhood would destroy the historic fabric of Windsor Village. And contrary to the statements made by Nora Dresser, this does not conform to the preservation plan. It's 4 stories. The setback is only 15 feet. It's too massive for the neighborhood. And here you see the negative impact on the contributor, the duplex. This is what Murrumbilla proposes. This is another condo that only has a 10-foot setback, and this was built prior to our HPOZ. If I could have those other boards. Thank you. Now, to give you a short history, in '06, the vacant lot and existing apartment building was purchased by a prior developer. In '06, that developer obtained a tentative tract map approval. In 2010, the building and the vacant lot were sold to Murrumbilla. That was in 2011 it was sold. In 2010, we got our HPOZ. So basically, Murrumbilla walked into a situation it should have been aware of, and that's the fact that there are certain rules and regulations under the HPOZ ordinance, as well as the preservation plan. As soon as we got our HPOZ, all by rights development ended. And if you read LAMC Section 12.20.3C. It states that the preservation plan and HPOZ ordinance take precedence over all other LAMC sections. Now, with regard to the flawed process, this development did not go through the HPOZ process. One of the HPOZ board members was forced to recuse herself. She was the appointed CHC architect. It was a 3-3 tie vote in November of 2013. Thereafter, the project went to the Director of City Planning in 2014. He had the project drastically changed. It resulted in a larger project than the one initially presented to the HPOZ. He did not send the project back to the HPOZ, which he should have done under the HPOZ ordinance, and thereby approved a project that does not comply with the preservation plan and the HPOZ ordinance. What we would like from the committee is we would like this process to start over again because of the extreme flaws that were committed by city planning. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank Parello, Louisa Van Leer, Charlie Fisher. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Committee Chair Weezar, members of the committee. My name is Frank Parello. I'm a retired urban planner. I was with the City of Los Angeles for 25 years, and after that I was Director of Planning for Historic Resources Group. The Windsor Village Preservation Committee asked me to look at the planning process that went forward on this project in relationship to the environmental impact, the CEQA appeal you have before you. In my opinion, the planning staff erred in forcing the board architect, Susan Wilton, to recuse herself from voting on the project. Ms. Wilkinson was not advocating for the project. She was actually, as the historic architect and resident of the area, she was advocating for the policies and programs of the community plan. And I believe the staff members should have requested either the city attorney's opinion or the ethics commission opinion before requiring her to recuse herself. Forcing Ms. Wilkins to recuse herself resulted in the board being denied the expertise, knowledge, and role of the Windsor Village HPOZ historic architect.
Thank you.
In that
need to wrap up.
She basically was not able to have someone who could actually translate two-dimensional drawings into a three-dimensional space. Secondly, they erred.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I have to be consistent with the time allotted. It's 1 minute.
All right. Well, I have submitted my a report to your board, and I'd appreciate it if everyone would take a look at that. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. That was Frank Parello, Louisa Van Leer, Charlie Fisher.
Good afternoon. Louisa Van Leer, architect, preservation architect. As a preservation architect with over 20 years experience as a design professional, I've reviewed the Morambila condominium project with regards to its compliance with the preservation plan for the HPOZ. The preservation plan for Windsor Village calls for new construction to be, quote, responsive and sympathetic to its historic context and to be compatible with historic materials, design feature, scale, and massing. The Morambila project, with its bulky four-story massing, is not responsive to the two-story contributor neighbor to the south. The Spanish Revival style contributor to the HPOZ. Combined with the existing three-story non-contributor on the other side, thoroughly boxes in this contributor. In the Morambila renderings that were submitted to planning, it was not fully analyzed the impact to this structure that this would have, resulting in lower property values for this owner. This looks like a teardown if the Morambila project goes forward. And we don't want that in an HPOZ. We want to support our contributors. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlie Fisher, Suzanne Wilton, and Kyung Pike.
Good afternoon. Charlie Fisher, 140 South Avenue 57. I'm a historic consultant who has done numerous, over 150 nominations for HCM in the City of Los Angeles. I also serve as the chair of the Highland Park Garvanza HPOZ board. And as such, the procedures that were done here just didn't seem, we don't do that in Highland Park. We would, if a building has a redesign after we've approved it or viewed it, usually it comes back to us. That should have happened here. As a matter of fact, the MMD called out the HPOZ process as one of the mitigations, and yet it didn't go through there that second time. There's also the issue, of course, of the recusal of the architect on the board, which we don't believe was proper. She was not advocating for the community. She was showing what was there. HPOZ board members are supposed to understand their community, understand the HPOZ. You have 3 HPOZs that are tied together with one board, and not everybody lives in Windsor Village. And thank you.
Thank you. Suzanne Wilton, Kyung Pike.
I'm Suzanne Wilton. I am the architect who was on the HPOZ board. I had to recuse myself from the vote. I would have voted against the project. What I have here are the boards that I made to show you the project, the existing buildings that are 2-story on the block. Those are the ones on the block. So you can see they're very low, they're all 2-story, and the new project is too tall, it's too bulky. However, I have to say the city, Ken Bernstein and Lambert Giesinger, worked hard. They came up with a really great design. It could be approvable. We could come up with a compromise. It just needs to be 2 stories in the front, 3 stories in the back, and have a sensitive setback so that it fits into the neighborhood. But it is a very nice building, and it would work in our neighborhood if the scale comes down to fit the rest of the buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. Kyung Pak. And then we'll hear from the applicants.
Hi, my name is Kyung Pak. At next to the project, I told Peter Wilson make it lower and smaller, but he said that is impossible. I bought my duplex because of historic zone. HPOG means protect HPOG contribute, but this project didn't protect anything. That project is higher twice my house and 70 car parking under. That means too much traffic and noisy. Lucerne is very, very busy street. Add the 70 car, think about it. And Saturday morning, they cut the big, big sycamore tree. All my neighbors cried out. And if they finished that project, they took the money and living there. But we have to live, our neighbor, my generation have to live there for a long time with that giant monster building. Please help us.
Thank you. We're going to hear from the applicant. We have 2 people's cards submitted for the applicant, Elia Thompson and Jonathan Riker. Would you like to both combine for the 5 minutes, or one take 5 minutes and one take 1 minute? Full time? Okay, thank you. 5 minutes.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Jonathan Riker with the law firm of Sklar Kirsch, 1880 Century Park East in Los Angeles, here on behalf of the applicant and property owner. And first, we'd just like to say that we concur with the city's recommendation to deny the appeal, and we agree that the MND fully analyzes and addresses all potential impacts posed by the project, and that there are no significant impacts that could result. We also wanted to mention, and I believe we provided copies for you of signatures from the community. We gathered 35 signatures over the weekend in support of the project to deny the appeal, as well as 27 others that the property owner just brought forward to me today, which I can provide to you as well. So there is quite a bit of support for this project, which would provide the type of housing that's a niche that's not fulfilled, which is attainable housing. The condo prices are relatively affordable for working professionals. There are only 14 additional units that would be built. So in terms of environmental impacts, you're not looking at a 32-unit new project. It's only 14 additional units. And again, the M&D fully vets the environmental issues, which concluded that there were no significant impacts. In fact, a project of this size would oftentimes be exempt from CEQA altogether. Just to address briefly some of the concerns raised by the appellants, the project is compatible with the zoning requirements, but for the fact that there's a subdivision map that was required and the HPOC approval, this would be a by right project which conforms with the zoning height limits, setbacks, and so forth. There have been efforts to change the design to help allay some of the concerns of the community, as the building has been set back farther than required by the zone, and the heights are compatible with other building heights adjacent to or on the same block and across the street, which are 3 to 4 story buildings. And otherwise, we have the property owner and the architect here today to answer any questions. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. John Schilling, Ellison Sapunar, Betty Fox.
Mr. Chairman and council members, I'm a surrounding property owner, and I appeared in support of the appeal today, anticipating that I'd be able to cede my time to the appellant, since that's not allowed. And otherwise I'm prepared to speak to the issues before the committee. I'm happy to say thank you and yield my time.
Great. Thank you. Allison Sapunar.
I'm Allison Sapunar. I live in Windsor Village. I'd like to say that there is not widespread support for this project. We submitted over 200 signatures against this project in our neighborhood. The project should be sent back for review to the HPOZ board since it was changed and made larger. And I would hope that the city would consider that in your decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Betty Fox, Flora Bautista, Wayne from Encino.
I live directly across from this lot. I live at 852 South Lucerne for many, many years. And as a longtime resident, I live in a contributing building, and I would like to know that the board will consider the size of the building is totally out of proportion to everything else on the block, on the east side and the west side. And that's important in maintaining an HPOZ community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Flora Bautista. Welcome.
Flora Bautista. I approve the appeal. The Murrumbilla project is inappropriate in our historic neighborhood because the Murrumbilla project violates our Windsor Village Preservation Plan, and the prior actions of City Planning Department violated the CEQA mandates in regards to the historic setbacks, historic lot coverage, and historic heights, and historic bulky and scale massing. There are no 4-story historic residential buildings in our Windsor Village community, which the Murrumbilla project calls for. Therefore, I ask for the new development to follow our historic preservation plan. If city planning allows this project to go on with the current plans, I ask, why do we have an HPOC and a preservation plan in existence? So I ask you to really get this back to HPOC for final review. Thank you.
Thank you. Wayne from Encino. And Wayne, can I remind you that you need to speak to the item before us on the agenda. If you do not comply with that, you will be prohibited from speaking on other items of this committee. Thank you. I'm just warning you from your previous comments earlier on the other item.
Oh, you mean about knowing Mitchell Englander for the board? Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Puppet. Okay. So I reviewed the appeal. You have the HPOZ issues, but you also have Cultural Heritage Commission issues, and you have the taking down of a historic structure. So there's impacts that are so severe in this case The community impact on the plan is the issue. It doesn't fit within the plan. There was a recusal. There's some shenanigans going on that somebody recused themselves but would have voted no. I smell something wrong there. And finally, it says that Tom LaBonge is the councilman for CD4. No, it's not him. It's David Woo. And David Woo definitely would be in favor of the people of the community having a voice. Remand the case back to HPOZ and let them straighten this out. Don't approve it as is, because the people here in the HPOZ are being denied due process. Thank you.
Thank you. Julia Duncan from Council District 4.
Hello, council members. Thank you for having us here today. We hope that in the future our office can work as a partner between communities and development projects such as these to avoid the circumstances we find ourselves in today. However, based on the recommendation of both the City Planning Department and the City Attorney, there's no basis to grant the appeal. No substantial changes in circumstances or new significant environmental effects have been shown to warrant the appeal on the grounds stated. We will work with both parties to try to work out their differences separate and apart from the grounds that this appeal is based on, and we respectfully request that the appeal be denied today.
Thank you. And your request is what again? I'm sorry.
To deny the appeal.
Okay, thank you. Staff, can you come up to the microphone again, please? Thank you. Just a few questions. One is the issue of the HPOZ process, and that there was a project submitted, went through the HPOZ process, as I understand it, later modified, and one of the speakers mentioned that that should have gone back to the HPOZ with a new project instead of a modified project, and it didn't do that. Any comments on that?
Good afternoon, Ken Bernstein with the Office of Historic Resources. So with respect to the HPOZ process, there was a hearing before the HPOZ board. As was mentioned, the HPOZ board voted 3 in favor, 3 opposed. Although that was not a formal action of the HPOZ board, the Director of Planning, our Office of Historic Resources, does take into account in crafting its determinations the comments of each and every HPOZ board member. There were comments that were made regarding compatibility, regarding setbacks, regarding design at the original HPOZ board meeting. There were some adjustments made prior to the determination, but none of those changes, all those changes were really in keeping with the project description, and the consideration of the HPOZ board did not rise to a level that they would require reconsideration or further consideration by the HPOZ board, and in many ways, in fact, they were trying to be responsive to comments made by the HPOZ board members and by the public at the HPOZ meeting.
Okay. And is it accurate to say that a 10-year-old MND was used for this?
No. As was indicated, there was an MND that predated the approval of the HPOZ, because there were changes in circumstances that, as the project moved forward, the HPOZ went into effect in the intervening years. The department did prepare an addendum to the MND in 2013, and that provided additional analysis based on the HPOZ being in place at that point.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? No. Okay, so we'll recommend that the appeal be denied, and we will affirm the decision by the Area Planning Commission and move that item forward. Any objections? Seeing none, so ordered. Thank you. Is that accurate?
Yes, Council.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on that item as such with so ordered. Thank you. Next item, please.
Councilman, item 3, this is an appeal by Glenn Block et al. It's relative to the approval of a track map for 16 small lots subdivision in CD2.
Thank you. Staff here on this item? Thank you.
afternoon, members of the Planning Committee. I'm Mark Wershing with the Valley Subdivisions Unit of the Planning Department. The case before you is 5 appeals of the disapproval by the South Valley Area Planning Commission of the previous approvals, of the previous appeals, of the approval of vesting tentative tract map 72932 for a 16-unit small lot subdivision of single-family homes located on the south side of Riverside Drive, east of Colfax Avenue in Valley Village. The project is a net increase of 4 units over the existing 12 units on the project site. The 43 appeal points from the 5 appellants fall into 4 general categories. The first is that the proposed project has a density, height, and scale that makes it multifamily in character, which is contrary to the character of the single-family home neighborhood immediately to the south. However, the project is not in the single-family home neighborhood itself, but rather is adjacent to it. It is on a corridor planned and zoned for multifamily residential development along Riverside Drive since Valley Village was first subdivided and developed starting in the 1920s and 1930s. The intent is for Riverside Drive to have a denser multifamily character. The alternative to this project is not 3 single-family homes along Riverside Drive or preservation of the existing 12 units. Rather, it is apartments and condominiums at a similar or greater density and with bulkier buildings than the 15 individual homes. In addition, the project is not being developed at the maximum density allowed by the R3 zone, which is 800 square feet of land per unit. Rather, a queue condition established by the Valley Village specific plan creates a minimum of 12,000 square feet of land area per unit as a requirement, which reduces the density permitted by a third to 17 units, with the project at 16 units being 1 unit below the maximum number permitted. And the height is limited to 30 feet in accordance with the limit in the Valley Village specific plan, rather than the 36 feet permitted for multifamily residential projects. The second category of appeal points is that there is a non-compliance with the existing procedures and regulations on the part of the developer and the planning department staff. We think these points are invalid as discussed in the responses to the appeal points in the staff report to the Area Planning Commission. And 2 of the appeal points incorrectly state that the developer is applying for a density bonus and for adjustments. The project conforms to both the R3 zoning and the medium residential designation on the community plan and with all the provisions of the Valley Village specific plan. The third category of appeal points is that the environmental clearance is inadequate, that the project has impacts that are not discussed and analyzed in the mitigated negative declaration, or that they are not mitigated. We think these points are invalid as well as discussed in the responses to the appeal points in the staff report to the Area Commission. The M&D discloses and mitigates all the impacts, and the environmental impacts of a net increase of 4 dwelling units are modest. The final category of appeal points is that the project has impacts on the residential neighborhood to the south. We think any impacts to the neighborhood are substantially reduced by the provisions of the Valley Village specific plan that reduce the density and height and the conditions of approval for the tract map, such as the requirement for 4 guest parking spaces and the decorative masonry wall on the south side of the project site. For these reasons, we are recommending that the denial of the appeals by the Area Planning Commission be upheld and that the appeals before you be denied. That's my presentation.
Great, thank you. We will now hear from the appellants. I have 3 people submit cards for the appellants. How would you like to do this? One is entitled to a 5-minute presentation. Do you want the 3 want to do the 5 minutes, or
How about if I do 3 minutes and then each of the other two will do 1 minute?
Sure, that's fine. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Glenn Block. I am here on behalf of myself, my family, as well as our neighborhood. Submitted at the Area Planning Commission were 30 letters of our various neighbors in addition to the 6 appellants there. If those letters are not in the council file, I have copies here today that I'd like to present, sharing the concerns that have been raised in the appeals. First and foremost, we do not believe that the environmental review here was adequate. Staff indicates that this is a modest increase of 4 units. The fact is that 16 3-bedroom, 3.5-bath, single-family homes on a corner is the equivalent of a full block of homes in our residential neighborhood. That is a significant increase in density. It's also a significant increase in density over what exists on the corner. There are presently 9 1-bedroom apartments and 3 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartments for a total of 15 bedrooms. This project would put 48 bedrooms on this corner. The traffic impacts have not been studied adequately enough. The applicant's traffic study acknowledges that the number of trips generated by this project will double over the existing development, from approximately 80 trips per day from the small, less dense apartments that presently exist to 152 trips. That analysis, the traffic study, did not in any respect evaluate those impacts on the neighborhood streets. It looked at Colfax and Riverside. It did not study Irvine, Blix, Kling, all of our neighborhood streets where there are cut-throughs, things of that nature that create significant safety hazards and problems on our local neighborhood streets. The neighborhood streets weren't studied at all in the traffic study. Furthermore, the parking presented in this project is inadequate. Each unit will have a garage with 1 standard size parking space and 1 compact space. And for the residents that would be expected in a 3-bedroom, 3.5-bath house, we can expect that many cars from the residents of this small lot will be on our neighborhood streets. That has not been addressed at all. Now, what's interesting is that the Valley Village specific plan looks to these kind of impacts from this kind of a dense development and the impact on our small single or less dense single family neighborhoods adjoining. And it provides measures, regulations to mitigate those impacts. Those impacts have been sidestepped here. The Valley Village specific plan regulations have been analyzed as though this is a single family home being built, and it is a multifamily, essentially a multifamily development. That's been recognized by the city's planning director. In August of 2014, the director of planning for the city of Los Angeles issued a specific plan interpretation. And what it found was that the nearly identical provisions of the Venice specific plan, identical to the Valley Village specific plan, suggested that a small lot subdivision does not comply or is not the equivalent of a single family home and should be analyzed and evaluated under the multifamily regulations of the specific plan. There is no reason why Valley Village should have an inconsistent interpretation here, and I think this is a very key point, that the specific plan in Valley Village is being interpreted completely inconsistently with the Director of Planning's interpretation. I think substantial evidence is presented in our appeals to establish at a minimum further analysis is required, including including but not limited to this issue of the Valley Village specific plan being implemented with respect to the multifamily development standards if the appeal is not to be granted in full.
Thank you. Thank you. You're Glenn Block.
I'm Glenn Block.
Okay. Babette Wilk and Francis Pereira. 1 minute each.
My name is Babette Wilk. I've owned my home on Blick Street for over 25 years. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and Bill Sindelar, who is a fellow appellant in this matter, and we are, in fact, co-block captains of our street. Of the many negative impacts this project will have on our immediate neighborhood, we would like to focus on safety. Our issues are based on logic and common sense with an eye to the future. The future being once this project is completed and occupied, once the developer is long gone. Blick Street has a tremendous amount of foot traffic, including children simply going from one house to another, all in the street because we have no sidewalks. We have been seeing an increase in cut-through traffic as density increases in the surrounding area due to the high rate of development on Riverside. Drivers dangerously speed through our inadequately signed intersections and through our streets to race to a signal on Beck Avenue onto Riverside Drive or to avoid a signal on Colfax. I hope you'll read my letter because there's a lot more safety issues that I'd like to address and can't speak fast enough.
Thank you. Francis Pereira.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Council members, thank you for the opportunity. I'm a resident of the area too. I just want to reiterate Glenn's and Babette's comments. We're asking the council to ask the city plan to reconsider the impact. Again, we don't think that the negative impact study has looked at all of these issues, particularly in the phase that in this half square mile area, there are 3 more developments coming up that's going to add more traffic to the area. So I think one of the big issues is safety, and I asked the committee to ask the developers and city planning to make sure that all of these issues are mitigated successfully and substantially, particularly in the number of cars that will be expected to flow in the area, plus parking, to be able to effectively address that for this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dave Rand, the applicant or applicant representative. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Honorable Plum Committee members. My name is Dave Rand with the firm Armbruster Goldsmith and Delvac, here today representing the applicant and developer, WCH Communities. Council members, we urge you to uphold the decision of your planning department and the South Valley Area Planning Commission, who looked at these issues in detail and unanimously rejected all of the appeals before you. This is a modest increase of only 4 units. Yes, they are 3-bedroom homes, 3-bedroom homes that will be an appropriate transition to the single-family neighborhood located behind the site, which incidentally is on Riverside Drive, a major Class 2 highway. The South Valley APC and your department has found that this project complies with the city's general plan, the Valley Village specific plan, the city's municipal code, the Subdivision Map Act, and the Housing Accountability Act, a state law which mandates approval of zoning consistent housing projects unless a showing of a substantial adverse impact, quantifiable adverse impact, is identified. No such showing has been made in any of the appeals. The appeals, albeit well-meaning, represent merely unsubstantiated opinion and conjecture. They do not represent substantial evidence. The MND that was circulated indicated there would be no impacts. That MND was subsequently enhanced by a series of technical studies at the request of the applicant, or the appellants, I should say, that further bore out there are no impacts with respect to traffic, air quality, parking, and what have you. Mr. Block overestimated the traffic. The actual traffic study said there would be a net increase of only 72 trips. Importantly, there would only be 6 in the AM peak hour and 8 in the PM peak hour. Incidentally, a subsequent letter was submitted by Gibson Transportation indicating that there would be no neighborhood intrusion impacts to the local streets that Mr. Block referenced. Again, there are no impacts here. The latest appeal put forth a bit of a Hail Mary in calling the existing buildings historic. No evidence to suggest that. Survey LA extensively surveyed this community plan area and did not identify the buildings as a potential resource. Additionally, as I mentioned, no traffic impacts local or otherwise. The appellants go on about the conformity to the Valley Village specific plan. I would note that the project permit compliance, which is the entitlement that reviews compliance with the specific plan, was approved by a final action when the APC denied the appeal of the director's decision. That issue is not before this committee. The only items that are before this committee are the track map and the environmental. So all those concerns have been decided in a final action. That's the legal basis for the appeal, but committee members, you are well aware that small lot projects are often difficult and controversial. This project shouldn't be approved because it's legally justified. It should be approved because it's a good project. My client, this developer, has worked for the better part of the last year and a half with the community to improve this project. Substantial design changes have been made. The project has been changed entirely after taking input from immediate neighbors, the Valley Village Neighborhood Council, and the Office of Council District 2. As a result, we have a better project, and I'm happy to say that we have the support of the Valley Village Neighborhood Council. So this is a project that has been vetted, both for all the legal reasons that have been brought up, but also at the community level. And as a result, we have a project that merits approval. We encourage you to uphold the decision of the South Valley APC. Incidentally, an APC, I would note, that is not often known as a rubber stamp for development projects. Uphold their unanimous decision to deny the appeal, as well as the decisions of your department. Thank you.
Thank you. Wayne?
It's not about legal correctness. It's about what the community wants. And Dan Kaplan, member, Planning and Land Use Committee, Neighborhood Council, Valley Village, submitted an item clearly stating that under Michael LeGrand's plan and the Venice Coastal Specific Plan's precedent, these appellants have a sustainable appeal. You're ignoring that. I mean, this appellant comes up here and says, oh, these people's claims are not founded. And he wants to be insulting and petty and nasty to the neighborhood people who come here and park and spend all this time preparing this mountain of paperwork. It's about the people. You represent the people, not the corporation, not the campaign donor. These people have put together a very good situation. If they got a decent lawyer and sued the city, they'd win in court just with that letter. That letter is just an absolute damnation by Dan Kaplan. Sustain the appeals.
Thank you. Caro Torosian from Council District 2.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair and Council members. My name is Cara Torosian, Planning Director for Council Member Paul Kokorian. This project in front of you is replacing a 12-unit apartment building with a below then by right allowed 16-unit small lot subdivision. We join with the Valley Village Neighborhood Council, the South Valley Area Planning Commission, and the Planning Department staff in supporting this project and believe that this project is in compliance of the MAP Act, the specific plan, and has an adequate environmental review. We would like to thank the appellants and the applicant in working together to improve our community. They are actually not mentioned today, but they have been in discussions for a third-party agreement that would give the city a minimum of $25,000 to do a traffic management plan and traffic improvements or community beautifications in the neighborhood described. A council motion was introduced today, creating the fund to accept those accounts if a third-party agreement is reached. We do not feel that this project has any significant impacts or any impacts not identified in the environmental review done, but they are still working on doing just community improvements in the area. and we look forward to working with all parties.
Thank you. Staff available again, please. So there were some rent-controlled units in this property before? Is that accurate?
That may be accurate because those are three fourplexes on there, so they may well have been rent controlled. But I don't know that with absolute certainty.
Under our application process through planning, the Ellis Act requirements to support the transition of people living in rent control units, the compliance with those items, is that under the planning documents, or is that a separate process in our housing department that keeps track of that?
I believe it's a separate process under the purview of the housing department.
So at no time in our procedures and planning do we verify whether the occupants were, what's the word I'm looking for when they move out? They vacate, handled appropriately, yes.
The question that I had to ask was along those same lines. How do we know that the developer actually conformed to the requirements of the Ellis Act, so that, because while the $25,000 is a modest, I think, benefit, what about the 12 moderate low-income rent-controlled housing? I mean, what does that mean for the stock? I was thinking the exact same thing, Mr. Chair.
Yes. And the issue that I was raising was more of one of procedures, because this may not be the only case, but in all the cases, we may not see whether those have been complied with or not. So it's not under the purview of the planning department, but it does raise issues. And so we get no verification from the housing department in this process that has been complied with?
That's right. That's currently not part of our process. It may be desirable to add that as a step to our standard procedures for subdivisions.
Okay. Well, it's endemic of something larger that I think we have to look at within our procedures to ensure that occupants of rent-controlled units are adequately worked with in these processes. The other issue, the appellant raised the issue of whether or not we were being consistent in analyzing the procedures used in this instance with the ones in this Venice-specific plan. I think did you hear that argument? Did you follow that?
Yeah, I heard that argument.
Yeah.
It's unclear whether a memo issued for the administration of the Venice-specific plan applies to other specific plans, including Valley Village. We tend to think it doesn't, but that need to be analyzed. Is it a general policy memo for all specific plans, or just the Venice-specific plan?
But if we analyze the Venice-specific plan in a certain case, and we're now analyzing it in a different manner here, would that create problems if we are analyzing it under differently?
Well, yeah, it depends if the Venice memo is intended to apply to other specific plans beyond the Venice-specific plan. I kind of think it's not that intent, but I need to read and analyze that memo.
Okay. Well, that does raise some issues. And I just want to make sure that we are being consistent in how we approach and analyze the small lot subdivisions. If we use one procedure in one area and another in another, these small lot subdivisions are already raising flags throughout the city. And I'm hearing more and more about constituents in those communities that want the city to correct its procedures and provide better protections. And when on top of that, we're applying and analyzing these subdivisions inconsistently throughout the city, it raises more problems for us. Again, this is endemic of a larger issue we need to address, but whichever way we go, I certainly, if the planning department, if you could for us, provide us a memo on that one issue before this item gets to council, whichever way we go, on how we are applying the analysis as to the different specific plans, this specific plan versus the one in Venice, and if there's any inconsistencies in that we should be aware of, and any exposure to liability. I guess that might be a city attorney question along with a planning department, if that exposes us to any liability if we are applying rules and analysis in an inconsistent manner. One thing that it's a foundation of our planning principles is that we are consistent and consistency. And so that it definitely raises a flag in terms of potential liability. So that analysis I'd love to see that before we vote on this in council. City Attorney,
Council members, Adrian Corsani, City Attorney's Office. I just want to state for the record for purposes of today's item that my understanding of the memo from planning, and somebody else from planning can correct me if I'm wrong, does specifically speak to the interpretation of the Venice plan, and it is the case that other plans may not have been considered and interpreted, but for purposes of that memo it was issued to deal specifically with Venice. If your broader question is just, generally, does that interpretation then affect others? That's appropriate for the report back, but just in terms of this conversation today, the memo was framed to look at only the Venice plan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were in our Valley office, were not aware of that memo at all until it was provided us by the appellant.
Okay.
So I think it's intended to be just for the Venice specific plan, though it certainly may be desirable for our department to issue a general memo for other specific plans as well.
That would be great, yes. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
This item's in council tomorrow.
It's in council tomorrow. Oh, okay.
Mr. Chair, though, but the last day for council to act is the 16th.
Is the 16th?
December, right. I mean,
Okay.
I share the same concerns that you do about the sort of interpretation, because it's my sense, too, that there's a potential for a disparate approach when it comes to these small lot subdivisions. So that's important to me. And also understanding the linkage between, I think it'd be a different thing if the developer suggested that they were going to have some level of affordability for these new units, but there's a loss here. So I'd like to get a sense for that before I vote on this.
Yeah. Can we, I'm looking at the calendar, we have we have Plum next Tuesday, right? And we have council the 16th before we go on break. So if we could continue this item to the 15th next Tuesday in Plum, get answers to those questions, and then schedule it for the 16th in council. And that's the last day to act.
Yes.
Okay.
And in council tomorrow, it would be appropriate to have it continued since it's on the agenda.
Okay. If we could do that, please. I just want to make sure that we are being consistent and we get the answers to these questions. It's not, to be quite honest, it's endemic of a larger issue we have, that we may see other cases come before us where we're facing the same issue, and it's better for us to deal with it now, and we see similar patterns in other cases, and it's before we go forward. So. Okay, so we could continue this to next Tuesday and then get answers to those questions and then schedule it for council on the 16th. Any objections to that? It's ordered. Okay, thank you. Next item, please.
Item 4, Councilman, is an appeal by Jennifer Daines. This is a MND appeal, a CEQA appeal, again, as it relates to a small lot subdivision for 5 units in CD 13.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Jose Carlos Romero, Deputy Advisory Agency, and responsible for this case. I approve this case, small lot subdivision. It's a 5 small lot subdivision in Echo Park Community Plan. On October 14, 2014, there was an appeal heard by the East LA Area Planning Commission. The decision of the Area Planning Commission was to grant the appeal in part, and this was upon the recommendation of the advisory agency. The main issues regarding this project are the, I'll just list them, is the front yard setback. The appellants argue that it should be 15 feet consistent with the zoning, and the advisory agency had applied the small lot subdivision provisions. Actually, I consulted with Building and Safety to determine the proper setback for safety purposes, and that was the decision. And another appellant argument is the access to the property. There is a 10-foot access easement at the ground level, but the actual opening at the ground level to access the garage is at least 22 feet. Another argument was the height. The maximum height allowed in this zone is 45. The project has 34 feet high for each unit. Another argument is the lot size. The appellant argued that the lot size is not correct, but every map that is submitted by the applicant is certified by a licensed civil engineer or a licensed surveyor, and they put the license on the line, and this is verified by Building and Safety as well. A significant argument was the grading, the geotechnical report submitted for this project. We look into that report and we advise the applicant to submit a revised geotechnical report to be reviewed by the city's Building and Safety grading division. Building and Safety grading division reviewed that revised geotechnical report, and they issue a revised letter, and that was included as part of the appeal proceedings. And what I should mention is that yesterday we received a revised letter from the fire department with a set of revised recommendations, conditions of approval. And I am including that as part of the record to the city clerk's office. I personally went to the fire department this morning. I spoke to the inspector responsible for this letter, and we went over the map, and they said that they stand by the recommendation, and there is no issue. The revised conditions really don't affect the decision by the Area Planning Commission. So our recommendation will be to sustain the decision of the Area Planning Commission to grant the appeal in part and to approve the project, and I'll be available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. First hear from the appellant. There's two appellants, Jennifer Dines and Carol Cetroni. Both of you are listed as appellants in the application. Is that accurate?
Yes,
okay.
we are.
Now,
But how do we divide our time, or how does that work out?
we will take one as, they're not separate applications, right? You submitted one application? There's one application?
Yeah.
An appeal with both names?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have a total of 5 minutes, however you want to divide that, and then 1 additional minute if whoever wants to speak on that 1 additional minute. So.
Okay, got it.
So you'll go first?
Ready,
okay.
go? Okay. Hi, my name is Jennifer Dines. Yes, I am one of the appellants. I wanted to first state that we were not properly notified for the APC hearing, and that we we were not provided with a hearing letter, although we had asked in writing that we be notified of all hearings, and that was not done. And nor was it's customary for the planning department to notify all neighbors within 100 feet of any developments with a small lot subdivision. That's been what's been consistent. You're talking about consistencies here. What's consistent is that neighbors within 100 feet are notified of tract maps. No neighbors were notified in this case. Also, I wanted to say that we have never had a representative from CD13 at any of our appeals or hearings, and I don't notice that one's here right now, in fact, but maybe I'm mistaken. But I would like to construe that as that we have their support. But if indeed that's not the case, then I would like to point out that no representative from CD13 has ever attended any event, nor have they responded to any of our emails. So I would like to point out that brings a complication for whether or not our rights have been represented, since you will probably approve or do something here today, and it'll go to consent once it gets to council, at which point we would feel that Mitch O'Farrell did not have a chance to hear it, nor did any of his staff. So anyway, where I'd like to go with this is talking first about the Ellis Act, since you guys were talking about it. This developer came in and booted out the two tenants that were in this building. It was a duplex. He booted them out. The first ones, he just got to leave miraculously without Ellising them. These were people that had been there for decades. The second group, he booted them out and tried to not give them relocation funds, which is required by the Ellis Act, as I'm sure you know. And in doing so, he drew negative attention to himself because Steve Lopez profiled that. And eventually, the tenants had to go to court. And they went to court, and they ended up coming up with a settlement in lieu of the Ellis Act relocation funds. And I think that this is a pattern that we're seeing throughout the city, people avoiding the Ellis Act. And the reason why is because if you Ellis a property, there is a covenant on each single one of those small lot subdivisions which says they have to be owner occupied, or at least they can't be rented out for 5 years. That is, a cloud that's on each one of those. So it's something meaningful when you consider that these multifamily rent-controlled units are being raised in favor of these luxury townhomes. So anyway, and you also wanted to talk about small lot guidelines. Well, I'll say that we are here primarily because the small lot guidelines are unenforceable. And I think you know that. You probably hear that from every group that comes in front of you. You've got a really good set of guidelines that was made by planning folks that are well paid and well educated. It's a good set of documents, yet it's pretty much a doormat. You know, no one observes them. We all look at them and we think, well, these are great ideas, and they're not followed. And city planning says they're unenforceable. So basically, we're forced to go through this entire process right now in front of you and past this and past onto the litigation process just to enforce the small lot subdivision guidelines. That's all we want. We don't want to block this project. We just want it to be consistent with the neighborhood and observe the underlying zoning. But instead of that, we're getting, our deputy advisory agency here who has just decided to hand out an adjustment and let these folks, not observe the setback. They're supposed to build. It's supposed to have a 15-foot setback beyond dedication in RD 1.5. That's just the rules, but somehow they're getting away with it. Anyway, I would like to also point out that you want to talk about inconsistencies in small lot subdivision recommendations. Well, we got the driveway, and you're going to hear about that later. But, we've got two deputy advisory agencies that come up with varying decisions on this. Jay Kim always adheres to the 20-foot driveway. It's like you've got to be 20 foot open to the sky. That's for safety. He will let 18 feet slide. Jose is just like, you know what? You can do 10 foot. It's up to me, unless you can make a good case for why not. And he goes down there and talks to them, and apparently they're letting him get away with 10 feet. This is a hillside. This is a high fire hazard area. 10-foot driveway. You got 5 units. You got everyone that's in there in the back is going to be backing out because 10 feet is not enough to turn around. I don't know what he's talking about when he says 22 feet because you got to look at that map, and it says 10 feet on there. 10 feet is 10 feet. Well, anyway, I will submit the rest of my time and relinquish it to Carol Citroni. Thank you.
Thank you. She got 0 seconds, and that's what she gave you.
I want those 2 seconds.
Carol
Hi.
Citroni, you have 1 minute. Thank you.
Thank you.
1 minute.
My name is Carol Citroni. Yesterday I submitted for the record some comments referencing our experts' review of the soils report provided by this developer. Our expert, his opinion is in conflict with the report by this developer, and I'm hoping you'll have a time to to review that. But today I wanted to talk about the original fire department approval letter from April of this year, which was deemed by Inspector Duff of the Hydrants and Access Unit of the LA Fire Department to be inadequate. When I brought this letter to his attention last week, he was surprised to see his initials on the letter that he says he did not write. He informed me that the letter was grossly insufficient and that he would rescind the letter and issue a new one after review of the site and the plans. He issued a new letter just last week. Okay, well, quickly, just 4 points I want to make about this new letter. He's asking...
I wish I could do that. I try to be consistent in giving people the appropriate time and not allow people to go over their time. So
Really?
yes, if you could
Okay.
finish up your thought, but you can't. 4 points. It sounds like it's a lot.
Okay, well, in the time we just said that, we could have done something. Well, anyway, I've just submitted the new recommendations letter, which include a green belt and some new driveway recommendations. It's very clear from the plans that this driveway is only 10 feet, and it's inadequate for this high fire severity zone.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now to the applicant, Jeff Farrington or Todd Wexman.
Good afternoon. I'm Todd Wexman. I'm the applicant on this project, and Jeff Farrington will also speak if we have some extra time or take the 1 minute later. I'd like to clarify a few issues related to the project. First off, there was a mailing, as there is with every tract map, to the residents within a 500-foot radius of the project that was done. That's planning policy, and it goes through an independent mailing service. So neighbors were all notified regarding this tract map. The tenants did move out of the property. One of the tenants was not in occupancy when we purchased the property. The other tenant, they received substantial relocation funds and moved out willingly. We went through the typical process of public outreach on this project. We worked with the council office. We worked with the neighborhood council. The council office actually suggested that we reach out to the Echo Park Improvement Association. We attended a couple neighborhood council meetings and the Improvement Association meetings. They granted us a letter of support after we made several modifications to the project per their suggestions. I'd like to note that the front yard setback is actually 5 feet. That Preston Street, the prevailing, as defined by the city planning rules, the prevailing setback's about 0. When you go down the street, you'll notice folks have front yards. That's actually all city property. So our property will be 5-foot setback further than the typical property on the street. The height of the project we dropped down. We have 3-story houses. We have a 45-foot height limitation. We dropped the houses down even further per the Echo Park Improvement Association suggestion. So from the front yard, it appears to be a 2-story structure. The parking garage for the first unit is semi-subterranean. Our project is actually lower in height than the adjacent apartment building. Generally, the properties are, the way the city measures them, 34 feet high versus the 45-foot limitation. The massing of the project is consistent with the neighborhood. There is a 7-unit apartment project on one side of our 5-lot, small lot subdivision, and there's a 4-unit apartment project on the other side. And as I noted, our project will have a lower elevation than the apartment building next to it. The drive aisle, we have 22-foot backup space, which is a requirement per the city LADBS, and we have a 15-foot drive aisle total. The city code requires a 10-foot drive aisle for any driveways that have up to 20 cars. We only have 10, so 10 would be adequate. We have 15. I guess that's about it. We're not asking for anything on our project. I live in Silver Lake. I've lived there 20 years. I'm active in the community. My kids went to school there. I care about the community. We care about what we build. We care about our reputation. We try to build nice stuff. We're not asking for anything. Our height's below the limits. Our setbacks are all right. And just for clarification, too, if somebody built an apartment building here, they could have 5-foot side yard setbacks on either side. We will have a 5-foot setback on one side, a 10-foot on the other. So our setbacks are greater than if an apartment or a condominium were built on the property. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Farrington.
Yeah, co-applicant, thank you for your time. I'll try to make it fast. I just only wanted to address one additional issue, and that's with respect to the grading concerns that were raised. There was an initial submittal made by our geotechnical consultant. The grading division required some changes to be made. A second submittal was made to the grading division. That was subsequently approved. There was an approval letter on file. That is what was contested by the appellant. They had a third-party geotechnical consultant look at that approval letter and report. Even though there's no formal process for doing this, we had our geotechnical consultant at the request of grading respond to that third-party letter to make sure that all concerns were addressed, and our geotechnical consultant went literally point by point to address the entire third-party letter. That then was approved as another sort of a 2.0 supplemental letter that was subsequently approved by the grading division. So we do have an approved soils letter on file that addresses all of the concerns raised by the applicant's consultant as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug Haynes. Wayne. Christopher Steiner.
Good afternoon. My name is Doug Haynes. I'm with the East Hollywood Neighborhood Council. I'm also board member of the Hollywood Studio District Neighborhood Council. I chair the planning committees for both. I was asked to come down today to give my experience. I've been dealing with small lot subdivisions for 10 years. I have 8 right now on the docket that we're required to review. I've never seen one that's compatible with the street context, and that's why you have so much outcry from the communities on these factors. I was asked to look into this one. I went to the commission hearing. I will point out that on the rear unit, if you look at the site plan, the people who drive into it will have to back out. They can't turn around. The planning staff and also the applicant are claiming that the pedestrian walkway is part of the driveway when it's not. In these small lot subdivisions, primarily as in all of LA, most people park their cars outside of the garages and they use the garage for storage. So that's a key issue here that I think needs to be addressed. I think you should really look into this one, as you should at all, and please make the guidelines mandatory at some point. Thank you.
Thank you. Wayne, Christopher Steiner, and David Ordaz.
So as Carol Citron's letter says, Berkeley Hillside Preservation versus City of Berkeley, First Appellate District. She has precedential law in the appellate courts that's saying that land slippages raised require a CEQA review, and an environmental impact report is necessary. You guys know she makes a prima facie case for a CEQA report and cites appellate law. That's it. You got to give her the CEQA review. Because if you approve this thing, there is no reason on a writ of mandate that the Superior Court judge isn't going to grant a stay. So these appellants, they did a remarkable job really putting the animus in this, and just like the prior appeal. And I'm very disappointed with Mitchell O'Farrell and the arrogance that I'm seeing. So because they don't have a city councilman to represent them, the three of you are going to have to step in the shoes and support these homeowners.
Christopher Steiner, David Ordaz.
Good afternoon, Christopher Steiner. I'm a resident next door to this project. The developer spoke about the notice provisions that were complied with, but nobody in the neighborhood has any idea what's going on here. I became familiar with it just 2 weeks ago because the AQMD posted a notice that they weren't in compliance with certain asbestos regulations, which led me to ask questions, talk to the appellant, and then talk to people in the neighborhood, and consequently I got 26 signatures to a petition supporting this appeal. I would echo everything that she says. Additionally, specifically relevant to me in regards to this driveway, it requires backing up. And in the last year, I've seen 2 people get in fender benders right in front of my apartment because of people backing up and people racing down the street. And with this project, you're going to have a blind corner, you're going to be backing up into the street, and you're going to only exacerbate that problem, let alone the disruption from traffic of 10 people, if they even use the parking lot, driving in and out of this large structure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. David Ordaz.
Hi. Mr. Navarro has misled you as far as the fire department goes. They require 20 feet to the sky. This is a new track map with a new road in front of 5 new houses. You can't possibly expect 5 new houses to have a 10-foot driveway, which is not a driveway, it's a road. And I've been trying to get parking on the other side of Preston and they will not even assign parking to the other side of the street, and that's a 25-foot road wide. So Mr. Navarro has misled you. I don't know how he thinks he can go down to the fire department and talk to them and get this approved. And the other thing is about small lots, what's happening is you're taking away people's rights. That's why everyone is objecting to this. And you can see by this type of action that, you know, they don't want to improve the road. They don't want to make the road 18 feet, you know, make it wider. Cars coming up a hill can't see. They can hit someone.
Great, thank you. Okay, that's our last speaker. Can staff come up, please? Did the applicant comply with all the rules? Well, you've already recommended that we didn't approve the APC, sustain the APC, and deny the appeal. And I'm assuming you're recommending that because the applicant has complied with all the application requirements?
Yes.
On the setbacks, those were issues that were raised. Any issue there?
They were raised from the very beginning of the public hearing. Then they were raised again at the Area Planning Commission, and we went over every single argument on the part of the appellant. The setbacks are in compliance with the smaller subdivision provisions. Yes.
Notice requirements?
Notice requirements, they were complied with. The LA Municipal Code actually requires only that we notify the appellant and the applicant. A standard practice in the planning department when it comes to subdivision, and this is for 26 years that I've been here, at the beginning of the public hearing, of the advisory agency public hearing, we tell the people who come to listen to the case to write their names and addresses, whoever wants to receive a decision, a letter of decision from the advisory agency. So whoever writes their names and addresses, they're notified for any appeal. There were a few people who wrote their names and addresses, and those people, I don't know if they received, but we have evidence that we send the notices. The notices is in the form of the staff report to the Area Planning Commission. And the fact is that the Area Planning Commission, about 8 people from the community came. So they were able to, to know that there was an appeal on that particular case. So there was compliance with the notification.
Okay. And with respect to the 10-foot wide driveway on Preston Avenue, what is the reason behind doing a 10-foot rather than a 20-foot?
The 20-foot is just a policy, and in every single small lot subdivision, the width of the access easement is to the discretion of the advisory agency. The standard practice is when you have a lot that is 50 foot wide, we allow them to have a reduced a reduced access easement. And this is only the delineation of the access easement. And we allow them to have a reduced access easement width, provided that the fire department is in agreement with that. So the fire department receives the map and the elevations for every case, and they give us a set of recommendations. They review the elevations to see that the fire staff will have access to every single dwelling unit in the smaller subdivision, and that's how we make the decision on the access width. Now, why do we have the 10-foot? Because that's, they propose that. Sometimes we ask for more for safety purposes. In this case, they have a 10-foot access easement delineated only, but the actual opening to every single unit is 22 feet because they need to back out. So they can exit the development, forward, not backwards. And in this type of developments, it is prohibited to back out onto the street. So they won't be able to do that.
They will?
They won't be
able.
Won't.
Well, the application says that people won't be able to turn around with only 10 feet. Is that accurate?
No, but that's not, see, the 10 feet is only the alignment on the map.
Alignment,
But the
okay.
actual opening at the ground level will be 22 feet.
I see. Okay.
Because they need to get into the garage, and then from the garage, they need to back out onto the access easement so they can exit the development site.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay, so we will, we could move to deny the appeal and sustain the APC and move this to council.
Councilmember, do you want to adopt the revised fire department recommendations?
Yes.
For the map?
Well,
You
we
would
could-
grant the appeal in part to update the findings, allows you to modify the map, and then deny all other elements of the appeal and sustain the remainder of the APC's decision.
Okay, we'll move that, yeah. Okay, any objections? No objections? So ordered. Thank you. Next item, please.
There are no items. Public comment.
Public comment, Wayne?
So as I see here, the absentee city councilman, Mitchell Englander, just walks out, and he's been doing this all the time because he's being paid as a city councilman, but he's running for the Board of Supervisors. So you should order him to either have one job or the other. If he's not going to be here and he doesn't care about his constituents, have him take an unpaid leave of absence and have the mayor appoint a representative so that the people in CD 12 can be represented. Because right now in Porter Ranch, people are being gassed to death right now up there with this crazy thing going on with the gas from the gas company. They're gassing people, gassing little babies in their houses. And where's Mitchell Englander? Mitchell Englander doesn't even hold a press conference. So Mike Fewer had to step in and file a lawsuit. So Mike Fewer is not the councilman for CD 12. Mitchell Englander is a piece of garbage. Vote no on Mitchell Englander for CD 5 and the Board of Supervisors and get him out of here.
Thank you. Mark Lipman?
Hey, good afternoon. As I'm sure you're aware, there's been a lot of organizing across the city and a lot of fighting to get an interim control ordinance placed in several of our communities to address problems with the BMOs. And it's come to my attention recently that one of these areas east of Lincoln and Venice, the demolitions and constructions are going on business as usual. And I found that in our month's beachhead this month. I would like to give this to you so that you can see that. And this brings up some serious questions about what is this council's, this panel's monitoring and enforcement of the rules that you set. Because if you create these situations that people have to fight for these rights time and again, and the community really is given the burden of proof. Developers will let slide, but the community really has to put really a lot of time in for getting any type of protections.
You can wrap it up, please.
And after all of that, to get the protections and then them not being enforced is really injustice to everyone in the city. So I really like to ask you to take a look at what's happening with these BMOs and the ICOs to get some enforcement on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other business?
No, Council.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.